Hi, I'm Holly Kovo from Fitting Fitness In. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition specialist, and welcome to Get Healthy with Holly. Today I'm in my home garden with my husband Steve Kovo, and we're going to give you a little bit of a show of what we have in our garden, and then we're going to take you to the grill and we'll grill up some of the goods, the harvest from our garden.
All right, well let's come on in. So we've got a number of things in the garden. It's always a challenge with the amount of space you have, but this first part of the garden is really herbs, where we have rosemary and thyme, we have cilantro, we have Italian parsley, we have sage, oregano, so there's and basil. So it's nice, you can kind of pop into the garden quickly and grab some fresh herbs. We find that's something we tend to use quite a bit and store between freezing them and drying them. Also, we grow some kale in here, and we have some Brussels sprouts, and then some cabbage. So this row is kale and Brussels sprouts, and this is cabbage. And then further back we have some lettuce that's actually gone a little bit past its prime. That's what it looks like when you let when lettuce gets a little bit older. And then as we go along here, there's also bell peppers and in this row, so they're still a little bit. They're just starting to flower now, and then in the row beyond that, we have jalapeno peppers. So we're trying to set ourselves up to be able to make some nice salsa at some point here. That's one of my favorite things to do, is make fresh salsa, and of course the cilantro is a key ingredient in that too.
And what do you call our salsa?
Pepe Kovo's salsa. I try to give everything that I make a little bit of a name.
Oh, look at that little bear there. Marissa gave that to Steve for a Father's Day. Yeah, it's motion sensor, and it's supposed to scare the chipmunks away. So you go in front of it and it roars.
So we're anxiously awaiting the ripening of our tomatoes. We've gotten a few so far, but my sister actually has a greenhouse in Sterling, Connecticut, and she gave me one variety, one of each of her 14 varieties of tomatoes that I have there. And don't even ask me the names of them, because they're all, there's really a variety from plums to cherry tomatoes, to yellow tomatoes, to antique tomatoes in here, but they've all done pretty well, and it was nice getting some starts from her when we put the garden in right at the end of May. And one of the other things we have in here, which is taking up quite a bit of space, is the zucchini. And there's a number of zucchini plants along here. And anyway, so those guys are doing quite well. One of the last things that's in the garden here, I don't know if you can get through, there's a huge gooseberry bush. These guys, we like to try to make gooseberry jam with it. They're a tart berry. Right now it's pretty much past, but a week ago, this bush was just loaded with berries before we harvested them to make jam. One of my favorite jams. And then back in the corner here, there's some butternut squash. I can maybe point out a couple of little guys kind of coming out in here. See there. There we go, like what the little guys would look like in here, some butternuts. And That's about it for the main garden. So if you notice on these tomato plants and around on the pepper plants, there's little cotton rounds. Those rounds are, you saturate them with peppermint oil mixed with water to keep like chipmunks and things out of the garden. It's always a challenge. There's always something that wants what you have in the garden, and it's understandable. It's easy food to get. We've got some owls too. I think they help to a certain extent, but I think birds will notice them after a while. You can move them around a bit, but behind you we actually put in a little adjunct garden this year that would be things that come back every year. So there's a row of raspberries, like raspberry bushes that are growing there, and then we've got some strawberries and some asparagus growing in there and some rhubarb. It's the first year, and we've actually had a major problem with Japanese beetles now too. So they've been in here eating. You see holes in the leaves of things, and the Japanese beetles have been kind of tough. I've just actually ordered some traps. I'm probably a bit late in the game, but anyways, it's always a challenge gardening, but it still is fun. One of the challenges I think that you run into as someone who lives out in the suburbs is in how much space you put in for a garden, and really how you make the best use of it. And I was thinking about, like, I really wanted to put in some spaghetti squash because it's one of my favorites. It's a winter squash. It stores well. It lasts for a long time. And I really didn't have space for it in the garden. And so it's a vining squash. It really loves to travel. So this is a way to, in a very small space, to put in a garden, to have a small squash garden. And if you give it a trellis, and I just use these out of overgrown Christmas trees. I just quickly put this together, and then put some twine in there. It allows the squash to run all over, and I probably have close to 20 immature spaghetti squashes in there right now. But it's a great way to have a significant harvest of squash in a very small footprint. I have a lot of fun building something like this too. So this is like kind of just an idea of mine, and anyways, it's worked out quite well. One of the things we do in the springtime, before just to get a little bit of a head start, we use this little greenhouse to put some put some seeds into some pots and get a head start on tomato plants, and even the squash and broccoli and things like that. We started in there. Really nothing much going on in there right now, but it was certainly big. It was very handy in the springtime. And another thing that you can consider, if you've got a compost pile and you want to put in a garden, you can basically build it right around a small compost pile. I don't know if you can see one that was on top there. I just put I put a little bit of fencing, and I've got cucumbers and green beans growing in there, so that it's very rich soil, and you can kind of turn that into a very quick garden with a little bit of space.
And now he built himself an outdoor shower so he can clean off before he comes in the house.
Yeah, it's been a year. This is actually, when you think about it, this has been a back to basics year, right? And so there's always, you try to find things that you can do that make you feel good and you like to do. So I've always wanted an outdoor shower, so I had a bit of scrap wood left from some projects that really, not much, but I've just built an outdoor shower, so I've used that pretty much for the 3 weeks that I've had it. I've used it pretty much every day. One of the things that I try to do is think of creative ways to grow things, and so grapes always are a vining thing too, and they want to be up. And so this is actually a living trellis. This is these grapes are actually on an oak tree that I trim back the branches enough so that it gets a little bit of life for the oak leaves, but then it's all loaded with grapes inside. If you lift up in here, you look, it's all loaded up with grapes. So it's kind of a fun way. It's like I said, a living trellis. So hopefully I make some wine with these grapes this fall. Some other things we do have out in the garden, out in the yard, we've got some apple and peach trees. Because we really don't spray a lot in the sense, I don't spray at all for bugs. Typically what we do is we'll make apple cider out of the apples. And we've used the peaches where we freeze them and things like that, peach cobbler and things like that. But this is our little orchard. We have one pear tree here too, which has actually got a nice. This is one of the trees that's very interesting. If you're going to ever choose a tree to put out in your yard and you're not going to spray it, I'd highly suggest getting a pear tree, because pears are one of the fruits that you can get away with really doing very little. Other than pruning it, you can get very good fruit. Same thing pretty much with peaches, but if you do apples, you need to spray. And I just don't want to. I'd rather not deal with the chemicals. So another thing you might want to think about, if you want to just grow some herbs or maybe even some smaller vegetables, you can use the window boxes. There's some cilantro in one and some basil in another, and you just load them up with some fresh potting soil, and you can grow them that way too. If you don't have much space or you don't want to put in a garden, it's a great way to do it. Another way you can grow some plants and get quite a bit of yield from tomatoes, for instance, is out of a topsy-turvy, where you can basically put a close to a dozen tomato plants in this, and then as you can see, as it's planted in layers, and you fill it up, and as you add tomato plants in it, you just add more soil, and this will give you. I've got cherry tomatoes and regular sized tomatoes in it, and I figured it'll be right by the door, so you could pop in and harvest some there too. So this is up off the ground. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and if you've got any kind of critters coming in too, they typically won't get it. So it's another handy way of growing some vegetables at home in a minimal amount of space.
Now we're going to take some of our harvest, specifically our zucchini, and we're going to make zucchini pizza bites. So it's a nice and light appetizer, and it's a great one if you are a diabetic, because there's no bread involved and it's low calorie. All right, so we've been heating up this grill, and to start, I'm just going to place these on here. This is one medium zucchini that we picked this morning, or yesterday. We picked it yesterday. So you could make a lot more by doing multiple, but in this case you cut them a 1/4 inch round, or a 1/4 inch in thickness. Oops, I guess I gotta squish them a little bit. Can't be as uniform as I'd like. And one. All right, and then you drizzle a little olive oil. Now I like to use olive oil spray, and this is one of the nice ones. It's extra virgin olive oil. It's first cold press. Steve and I did a nice weekend in Providence, and we went on a tour of the Federal District, and we did an olive oil tour. It was wonderful. Anyway, so we learned, and this is not aerosol, so I'm just gonna spray these. Is this gonna, I have to be careful, huh? I don't want to get it on the flames. So you can spray it, or you can direct it with a stream. And then I'm going to do a little bit of salt and pepper on them. A little bit of pepper. And we're going to let these cook for about 2 minutes on each side. I'll shut this. For 2 minutes. And then we'll flip it over and do the same for another 2 minutes. So they're pre-cooked before we put the sauce and the mozzarella on them. Now, one thing I want to show you, so this is fresh basil from the garden, picked this morning, and I used a shredder on this, but I'm going to show you how you can also, if you don't have a spice shredder, you can roll the basil, roll it into a little roll. These are my little spice clippers, and just clip the little pieces. So you know, if you don't have all the handy dandy tools. I like having all the handy dandy tools, but if you don't, there's always that. All right, so we'll put that there, and those we're gonna put on top. So why not have fresh basil, you know? Now, what I should be doing is timing this, huh? Ooh, well, this works nicely. It's looking good, huh? So we grill out all the time. We probably grill 5 nights out of 7, and we just love it. And right now, from the garden, we're grilling everything. Now you could take zucchini, you can cut them in quarter bars, and then you can put a little olive oil and salt and pepper, and then put them across the grate, and then grill them that way. That's a nice way too. It's a little thicker. This is just kind of something different, a new idea of what to do with zucchini. All right, let's see. Wow, okay, these are cooking fast, so I'm gonna flip them. Last time I made these, it was raining, so I was cooking them in the house in a frying pan. But boy, this is cooking nice and quickly. Like that. You know what that noise is? I think it's Devin's. All right, then we're gonna spray a little bit more olive oil on this side. Just a light spray. And I'll probably do a little bit more salt and pepper. Want to make sure it has a little bit of taste. We're going to give it another minute because we can go a lot less on this one. Give it a minute, and then we'll add the sauce and cheese. Boy, it goes fast, and it's delicious. And it's low cal and low carb. Can't get any better than that. So these are handy little, these are my, I guess this is from Pampered Chef. These are my herb scissors that I go out into the garden and cut the herbs with that. Steve, can you hand me my other herb shredder? The one with the big handle on there, the roller. So the other herbs, these you can see here, I shredded them. And I use this shredder like this. I know it's kind of dirty, but, well, it's actually clean. But what you do is you just put the leaves down on the cutting board, and you just shred side to side. And that's what you get. This one, I think I got this at Kitchen Outfitters in Acton. Always handy. Thanks, hon. All right, woo! Okay, let me just check the bottom of these. A little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the sauce and the cheese. So just a little bit of sauce on each one. This is, what do I use? Barilla tomato sauce, pasta, marinara. This has a little basil in it. Oh, I timed that, I did that well. All right, then I chopped up some shredded mozzarella to make it a little smaller, a little bit on each one. You can make these bigger bites if you have a bigger zucchini, but I kind of like them smaller. You know, portion control. I'm all about the portion control. I love that. Okay, and then we're going to top it, of course, with some fresh basil. Guess I should have made a little bit extra on that. Okay. All right, so now we're going to close this, and Steve's going to keep an eye on this. Probably only needs about a minute.
And one suggestion I'd have in the sense of with the independent burner control, since the bottom's pretty well cooked, turn off the middle burner and just have the two sides on, and then so that there's no it's indirect heating, and then just kind of let them bake in there.
Well, he's the grill master, so normally he's doing all the grilling.
All right.
All right, so you keep an eye on that, and I'm going to go over and we're going to show some of the other things that I made already. All right, I just want to show you, these are kale chips that I made last night. And this is a very simple recipe. It's kale, you clean it, you spin it in the salad spinner, put it on parchment paper on a cookie sheet, spread it out, spray it with a little olive oil, a little salt, cook it for 10 minutes. This actual recipe, I made this recipe on an earlier show in season 1, episode 2. So you can find the recipe up on my website, fittingfitnessin.com, and look on the Get Healthy with Holly tab, and the recipes, go for that. So the other thing is the gooseberry bush that Steve showed you in the garden. These are the berries that come out of it. These are gooseberries. And he made jam out of the gooseberries. Now these gooseberries, this particular bush, parts of it came from Finland. His grandmother brought it over a long time ago. And so we replanted it, so that's what it is here. And here we have it on cracker. It was really easy to make the jam. It was great. And then another thing I want to talk to you about are beets. Now, we don't have these beets in our garden, but my daughter works at the Barrett Mill farm in Concord, and she brought some beets home from their CSA. And beets are really delicious if you slice them in like 1/4 inch slices, put a little olive oil and salt, and roast them in the oven at 400 for about 10 minutes on each side. Or one of my previous episodes, I think it was, again, it was season 2, episode 1, where I showed spiralized beets with honey and thyme. So beets, I know everybody used to think all I ever had was beets that were pickled, and I didn't exactly like them, and neither did Steve. And so you want to have a different way of eating these beets, and they're delicious. Beets are really good for your liver. Okay, so some tools that I have. Now, we have a lot of herbs because the garden actually started as an herb garden as a Mother's Day present to me, and you saw how it expanded. But what we do with the herbs is I dry some out, and then with a dehydrator, put them in these, and I freeze them. So I learned my lesson from trying all these different ways of freezing them. I tried freezing like basil in ice cubes. I didn't really like it. I tried freezing them in just sheets in freezer bags. Really, it wasn't the best. So what I found the best are these little herbsicles. All right? And I just bought about 8 of them. And right now, this is Italian parsley in here. And it's in this herbsicle. And you can turn it. You see how it comes out? And then you use this, and you just grate it, and you get what you need. And then you just put it back in the freezer until the next time you need it. I have to say, this is my favorite way of freezing herbs. So another tool, well, you've already saw the shredder, the herb shredder, but this is a handy dandy little tool. This is from Chefin, just like this, Chefin. Which I got at Acton Outfitters again, Kitchen Outfitters in Acton. So with the kale, you take the kale and you put the stem through one of these, depending on how big it is, and you just pull the stem through, and the leaf comes right off of the stem. It's so easy. It's awesome. These little gadgets make your life a lot easier in the kitchen. So these, again, this is from the garden, this is from the garden. We made it into jam, we made it into kale chips. My kids love these kale chips. They're really tasty. Instead of having sweet potato chips, you can have a kale chip. It's a lot healthier. All right, look at these pizza bites. These are awesome. Delicious and healthy. All right, I'm gonna put them over here for now. And I'm gonna make the last recipe, which is one of my favorite salads, is watermelon, cucumber, and feta. So this is 2 cups of watermelon. Actually, I'm doubling the recipe. So this is 4 cups of diced seedless watermelon. This is a cup of diced seedless cucumbers. Well, these had seeds, so I just scraped them out. And then this is 2/3 cup of feta cheese. I'm using mint, so this is a 1/2 cup of mint. And then this is a lime, 1 lime, juice from 1 lime. And then let's grab the salt and pepper really quick, although I don't tend to use that as much. And Steve, can you run in and get me a big spoon? I forgot to get a big spoon, one of the big mixing spoons. So I'm gonna put the cucumbers in here. And then I'm using mint, but you can use, so mint makes it very refreshing, but you can use basil, and basil gives it a more robust flavor, or you could use cilantro, which gives it a little bit more spicy flavor. So it's a matter of what you prefer. I prefer the mint because it just makes it that much more refreshing. Pour that in. And if you're gonna make it ahead of time, you put all of these 3 or 4 ingredients in ahead of time. You mix it up and you leave it in the refrigerator, and then when you're ready to serve it, that's when you put the feta cheese in. So I'm gonna mix it up. Now, you can put salt and pepper in there if you like. I actually prefer it without salt and pepper. All right, so if you're gonna prepare it ahead of time, and then once you're ready to serve, that's when you put in the feta cheese. All right. And that is our watermelon, cucumber, feta, and mint salad. What we have are these lovely recipes, all from the garden. Cucumbers from the garden, mint is from the garden, zucchini and basil from the garden, kale is from the garden, boysenberries or gooseberries from the garden. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and thanks Steve for joining me and helping me out today. Thank you very much, honey. And I look forward to seeing you next time on Get Healthy with Holly.